The Mexican Drug War. We are Adrian Berry, Caleb Dye, Zach Johnson, Quaylen Newton, and Noah Starkey, and we're going to be talking about the Mexican Drug War. We chose this topic because it's really interesting to us, and the drug war is still relevant and happening today. For example, if you've been watching the news, you may have seen activities of the drug war, such as El Chapo escaping from prison. In this presentation, we're going to be talking about the causes, events, and consequences of the Mexican Drug War. So what is it? The Mexican Drug War is an ongoing battle taking place between Mexican government and heavily armed drug cartels. The drug war originated in 1969 due to the high demand of marijuana from the United States. Before 1969, there was drug trafficking, but nothing of great concern to Mexico. The Mexican drug war can be attributed to prohibition, the Mexican cartels and their role in introducing cocaine and other illegal drugs into the drug war, corruption and weakness in the legal system along with a weakening judicial process, and escalating violence such as President Felipe Calderon's crackdown on drug trafficking and cartel leaders.
So as Caleb mentioned in the previous slide about prohibition of drugs, I'm going to talk about what it means. So prohibition is defined as the action of forbidding something, especially by law. The Opium Exclusion Act banned the importation, possession, and smoking of opium. The Harrison Act prohibited all non-medical use of opium, morphine, and cocaine. The Mary Jane Tax Act prohibits marijuana use. That was obvious. Although this is cheap and easy to produce, the prohibition of marijuana, cocaine, and opium increasing their value. Prohibition caused initial shortages that posted drug prices. Escalating violence. In December 2006, Felipe de Jesus Calderon became Mexico's 20th president. While he was in office, more than 100,000 people were killed when Calderon launched his military offensive against the cartels. Over 8,500 people were killed in Mexico's drug war in 2006 alone. Drug gang killing had rose to 2,300 and beheadings, torture, and other slaughters also increased to 3,000 police officers and soldiers died. An additional 5,000 people disappeared, 49 corpses were decapitated, dismembered, and dumped on the highway in New Mexico. Here on this graph, government expenditure on violence containment. As shown here, since 2003, they have spent 91 billion pesos on trying to stop the Mexican drug war. That was just 2003 alone. As you can see, in about 2014, it had rose quite a bit to 225 billion. And over about a half year, it dropped down to about 220 billion pesos. And that was just spent alone on stopping the drug cartels.
So, like Zach said, the Mexican government really has not been able to contain violence in Mexico very well. Here is a map of the drug-related murders that shows that. You can see in the dark red areas are where lots of murders took place. Over by Monterrey, there's over 1,000 that took place just in that area. The total amount of drug-related murders in 2012 was 8,530. This is quite a few, but it's actually gone down since the last years, and it's been going down, but there's always a chance that it could go back up again. So here's some notorious drug cartels that are responsible for the drug trade in Mexico. First, there's the Sinaloa Federation. They're the largest and most powerful cartel, and they control around 40 to 60% of the company's drug trade. They are extremely profitable, and they earn around $3 billion a year. They're led by El Chapo Guzman. You probably heard of him. He escaped from maximum security prisons twice, and he was captured recently in like 2015. Now he's been extradited to the U.S., where he's in prison, but that was all over the news. Next is the Gulf Cartel. They're one of Sinaloa's major competitors, and they've been around since the 1920s. They're based in Matamoros, Tamaulipas. It's on the eastern side of Mexico by the Gulf. Next, we've got Jalisco New Generation, and they're one of the most dangerous cartels. They're led by Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, and he is known as El Mencho. Last, we've got Los Zetas. They are former Mexican military. They left the military and became hitmen for cartels, and then they decided that they could do better on their own. So they split off and formed their own cartel, which is now the most violent cartel, and it's infamous for its tortures and killings, which they uploaded to the internet and shared across the world. They're led by Miguel Trevino Morales. He was known as Z40, and he's really an insane guy. He's done some horrific things as leader of the Los Zetas cartel. So here's a map of the cartel territories. The blue is like mostly Sinaloa Federation over there on the west side, and then the other main cartel is Los Zetas, and they control more on the eastern side. And then you can see the Gulf Cartel. It's over there by the Gulf, obviously, and it's kind of like dark blue. Here we've got a map of drug routes used by the cartels. So the red is cocaine, and that often comes in from Colombia. It's also made in Mexico some, but you notice most of these routes are going north as Mexico moves a lot of its drugs into the U.S. And this is going to be an interesting situation going forward with our current president, who is very against drugs coming in through Mexico. So it'll be interesting to see what Trump does about this.
There is a substantial amount of corruption within the legal system. Due to the power of the leaders in the Mexican cartel, a lot of people worked for them, from the government politicians, all the way to little children in the streets playing soccer. Most of the territories are very urban and low-income societies, so money becomes more of a scarce for small families. Especially the local police, many drug lords had officers working from them in order to receive extra income to take care of their families. Jobs from the police were very small, and I believe they felt like it was worth it because they really didn't have to do too much. And the same for the children. They were basically watchmen and covered for the streets to see if any police were coming and making sure that they kept up with the money flow for the cartels. Key personnel and factors throughout the Mexican cartel. Mexico offered 30 million pesos, which is about 2.4 million in US dollars, for the capture of the top drug lords throughout the cartel. The U.S. and Mexico paid different amounts depending on the information or capture of different personnel and involvement. Some major drug lords are part of the Mexican cartel. One was Juan Lorea, aka El Chapo, Ishmael Garcia, aka El Mayo, and Ignacio Valerio, aka El Nacho. The cost of fighting the powerful drug lords rose to about 172.7 billion, which was more than twice Mexico's foreign debt.
The cost of fighting the war on drugs has been high, but there are also many other consequences of it. The drug trade generates around $39 billion a year, and it employs 468,000 people. While this seems like a lot, most of these people are working for the cartel and in unsafe conditions, and they're probably not getting paid very much. So most of this money is going straight to the cartel. Because of the war on drugs, there's also increased violence. There's corruption from the police officers and the government officials, and there's also more local drug abuse. Lastly, there's also a cost of violence. So in this chart, you can see the indirect and direct cost of violence that is because of the war on drugs. So here's our works cited page, and here's our works cited for our charts and pictures.